Across the vast canvas of our planet lie cities not drawn in ink but carved in stone and silence. Civilizations that rose, thrived, and then vanished, leaving behind no explanation, only echoes. And these were once vibrant centers of life. Markets rang with voices, temples reached for the sky, and sacred rituals bound people to gods. Then they went silent. Some were swallowed by jungle, their stairways wrapped in roots and shadow. Others were buried under shifting sands or sealed within cliffs, known only to birds and wind. For centuries they were dismissed as myth, stories told around fires, their names lost to memory and map. But these cities were real, and they were built by human hands, filled with love, struggle, ceremony, and purpose. And then, for reasons still debated, disease, drought, invasion, faith, they were abandoned. Entire populations vanished, as if carried off by the wind. And just when the world forgot them, they were found again. Not by kings, but by cowboys, farmers, looters, monks, and explorers who chased rumors into the unknown. This is not fantasy. These are real places, real disappearances. 4 cities, 4 mysteries once lost, now uncovered. Their stories are waiting to be told. In 1911, high in the Peruvian Andes, an American historian named Hiram Bingham followed a 12-year-old local boy up a jungle-covered ridge. Through mist and moss, they emerged onto stone steps that led nowhere and everywhere. A hidden city in the clouds. Bingham thought he was dreaming. But for locals, this place was no secret. Farmers used the terraces, Quechua villagers lived nearby. Some called it Old Peak, Machu Picchu. Bingham wasn't its discoverer, but with the backing of Yale and National Geographic, he became its publicist to the world. He believed it was Vilcabamba, the final Inca rebel stronghold. He was wrong. Carbon dating and archaeological evidence now confirm it was built around 1450 AD by Pachacuti, the empire's greatest emperor. A royal estate, a ceremonial retreat, a sacred city in the sky. But why here? To the Inca, this wasn't just architecture, it was cosmology made stone. The Urubamba River curves below like a serpent, Amaru, the sacred river god. The mountain behind Huayna Picchu resembles a face in profile, guardian of the city. At the heart of it all stands the Intihuatana, the hitching post of the sun. During solstices, Inca priests would symbolically tie the sun to this carved stone, ensuring it would rise again. Even today, some Quechua elders whisper, "The stones speak at dawn." But what science has uncovered is just as breathtaking. This city sits at 2,430 meters above sea level, with no flat land and no roads to its summit. Yet somehow the Inca moved 20-ton granite blocks up the mountain. No wheels, no iron tools, no draft animals. How? Archaeologists believe they used log rollers, stone ramps, and sheer manpower. But replicating it today would require the logistical planning of a NASA mission. Their masonry? Blocks cut with bronze and stone tools fit together so precisely that not even a sheet of paper can slide between them. No mortar, just geometry and seismic genius. These walls flexed during earthquakes and survived. But Machu Picchu's legends don't end with its construction. Locals speak of apunamiento, not altitude sickness of the body, but of the soul. In 1997, an American tourist filming near the Temple of the Sun lost his footing and fell to his death. In 2000, a crane filming a beer commercial toppled and damaged the Intihuatana. Restoration workers reported migraines, vertigo, and an overwhelming sense of dread. Coincidence? Or does Pachacuti's spirit still walk his sanctuary? And then comes the greatest mystery of all. Why was it abandoned? Around 1572 AD, as the Spanish closed in on the last Inca outposts, the people of Machu Picchu vanished, but there were no signs of battle. Pottery remained, tools were left behind, even mummies. Archaeologists found lesions on skeletons, evidence of smallpox, likely brought by conquistadors long before they arrived. But here's the chilling part. Before leaving, the Inca ritually sealed their water channels, not a retreat. A farewell. A funeral for the city. So what was Machu Picchu? A fortress? A temple? A celestial observatory? Maybe all three, but the truth is this. The Inca built a palace on the edge of the sky, and then erased their own footprints. Was it genius or something divine? Now it's your turn to decide. In 1812, a young Swiss explorer named Johann Burckhardt crossed the deserts of Jordan in disguise. He had heard whispers of a magnificent lost city hidden amongst the mountains of Wadi Musa. He wore Bedouin robes, spoke fluent Arabic, and called himself Sheikh Ibrahim. Why the charade? Because the place he sought was considered cursed, a lost city carved into blood-red cliffs. Locals called it haunted. Spirits lived there, they said, jinn. To earn the trust of his Bedouin guides, Burckhardt drank a desert survival cocktail, warm camel milk mixed with blood. He wrote about it in his journal, proof of the extremes he faced, just to glimpse the forgotten. But Petra wasn't truly forgotten. Long before Burckhardt, 12th century crusaders had carved crosses in the monastery walls. Local tribes never left. They knew Petra as part of their homeland. What Burckhardt did was reintroduce it to the West and correctly identify it as the Nabataean capital known from ancient Roman texts. The city he entered was silent but not empty. Towering above him stood Alcazne, the treasury, its columns carved straight from the cliff. Legend said it hid treasure, so much so that 19th century tribes fired bullets at its urn hoping gold would spill out. Conservation teams recently confirmed that myth. Ottoman-era lead residue still marks the sandstone. Hollywood later turned it into Indiana Jones' Final Stop, which is portrayed as the temple housing the Holy Grail. But the truth, the inside is just a bare royal tomb. No traps, no grail, just echoes. Still, what Petra hides is far more impressive than fiction. The Nabataeans mastered water in the driest of places. With barely 15 centimeters of rainfall a year, they built over 200 cisterns holding 43 million liters. 16 kilometers of underground terracotta pipes snaked through the city. And in the Sik, the narrow gorge that leads to Petra, they carved flood tunnels so advanced they still protect tourists today. Recent archaeological studies show their water systems rivaled, even surpassed, what Rome built at the same time. But Petra wasn't invincible. In 363 AD, a powerful earthquake cracked its aqueducts and shattered key structures. Rome had already absorbed Petra into its empire in 106 AD, redirecting trade routes, and as power shifted toward Damascus, Petra's importance faded. Droughts followed, confirmed by sediment analysis in 2019. By 700 AD, the city had fallen silent, but its people didn't vanish. They became the Bedouin tribes who would one day lead Burckhardt through the gorge. Petra lived on through them, and the myths lived on too. Some say Petra is cursed. In 1963, a flash flood in the Sik killed 22 French tourists. Locals whispered that spirits had returned, but scientists found no curse, just poor safety protocols. The weeping tombs? That's just salt from moisture rising through sandstone, not tears of the dead. Even Petra's design sparks questions. Why does Alcazne face west when most tombs face east? Archaeologists now believe it was aligned with the setting sun on the winter solstice, a divine tribute to Dushara, the Nabataean sun god. A message carved in light. Was it religious devotion or royal arrogance? No one knows for sure, but the stone stands silent, and the sun still sets. In 1860, deep in the steamy jungles of Cambodia, a French naturalist named Henri Mouhot stumbled, sick with malaria, barely alive, into something no European had ever drawn before. Through vines and dense brush, he found towers rising like stone lotus buds into the sky. A vast ruin swallowed by forest. When he sent his sketches home, editors dismissed them as fantasy. A stone city bigger than Paris, built without steel, wheels, or even animals to drag the blocks. It sounded impossible, but Angkor Wat was very real, and what Mouhot found wasn't new to the people of Cambodia. Khmer monks had cared for it since its construction in the 12th century. Portuguese explorers had written about it in the 1500s. Even royal chronicles mentioned it long before Mouhot arrived. He didn't discover Angkor Wat. He simply made the West pay attention. But here's where the story gets even stranger. This wasn't just a temple. It was an engineering marvel. Built by King Suryavarman II as a monument to the god Vishnu, it wasn't held together by mortar. Each block of sandstone, quarried 40 kilometers away, was cut so precisely it locked into place like puzzle pieces. Even monsoon rains couldn't shake it. The entire complex was aligned with the cosmos. At dawn on the spring equinox, the sun rises directly over the central tower, a margin of error less than a single degree. Surrounding the temple is a massive moat, 190 meters wide, stabilizing the foundation, and the outer walls over 4 meters thick, designed to keep floods out, not just invaders. Yet even this masterpiece couldn't escape the tides of time. Angkor Wat didn't fall to a single event. It faded slowly like a drying river. In 1431, the Thai kingdom of Ayutthaya sacked the region, but the monks stayed. The prayers continued. Angkor was never truly abandoned. Still, the jungle crept in, not because of magic, but because no one was left to clear the canals. The once great hydraulic network clogged, the rice fields shriveled, and a city of 1 million began to vanish. LiDAR scans have revealed what was hidden: 1,000 square kilometers of engineered landscape, roads, reservoirs and temples buried beneath trees. Why did it collapse? Volcanic eruptions triggered monsoon failures, decades of drought followed by devastating floods. The canal system, once a masterpiece of control, began to fail, and the soul of the empire shifted from the lavish Hindu ceremonies of Angkor to the humble teachings of Theravada Buddhism. The temples no longer drew the same tribute. The kings no longer ruled with the same divine claim. It was death by 1,000 quiet cuts. But not all is explained. Only 1,200 inscriptions have been found across this vast region. Where are the royal records, the decrees, the archives? Some believe they were written on palm leaves, now long decayed. Others suspect they were never meant to be preserved. Power spoken aloud, never written down. Then there are the carvings. Deep in the Heaven and Hell gallery, one panel shows a creature with plates on its back. A stegosaurus or just a rhino surrounded by curling foliage. Even more puzzling, in 2015, ground-penetrating radar found sealed chambers beneath the central tower. Are they tombs? Ritual crypts? No one is allowed inside. And perhaps the greatest mystery, the temple faces west. Almost all Khmer temples face east, toward the rising sun, toward life. But Angkor Wat faces west, the direction of death. Was it a temple to the gods, a tomb for a king, a cosmic map? We may never know. Surya Varman's ashes were never found, but one thing is certain: Angkor Wat was not lost. It was remembered, cared for and transformed through faith, time and survival, and the jungle never swallowed it. It simply waited for us to look again. In the winter of 1888, two cowboys, Richard Wetherill and his brother-in-law Charlie Mason, were riding through a blizzard in southwestern Colorado, searching for stray cattle. As the snow cleared, they looked up and spotted what they described as a magnificent city in the cliffs. Hidden in a massive alcove was Cliff Palace, a sprawling stone village suspended 2,000 feet above the canyon floor. They weren't the first to ever see it. Local Ute people had long known of the ruins, but Richard Wetherill was the first to document and bring the site to the attentions of archaeologists. He was fascinated by the ruins and artifacts of the southwestern United States, and made a living as a rancher, guide, excavator of ancient ruins and trading post operator. He was criticized as a pot hunter by his archaeologist competitors. Although many of the artifacts he found were sold or donated to prominent museums, and his work was often financed or overseen by museums. In 1910, he was murdered in mysterious circumstances by a Navajo in Chaco Canyon. When Swedish scientist Gustaf Nordenskjöld visited in 1891, he was stunned. He called it one of the greatest prehistoric architectural achievements in North America. His book in 1893 made Cliff Palace famous in Europe. But what they found raised more questions than answers. Stone rooms stacked like ancient apartments, over 150 of them. 23 kivas, ceremonial chambers aligned to the solstice sun. All built between 1190 and 1260 CE by the Ancestral Puebloans, using no metal, no wheels and no written blueprints. They carved toe holds into sheer cliffs, hauling every stone by hand. Inside, the dust held secrets: corn grinders abandoned mid-use, pottery still ridged with human fingerprints, turkey pens with bones still resting in them. Tree ring studies show they flourished here for over 700 years. Then, by 1280, they were gone. There were no signs of war. No weapons. Instead, scientists found signs of collapse. A 70-year mega-drought beginning in 1276. Overharvested forests that triggered erosion and sealed kivas, perhaps marking sacred closures, not panicked escapes. Still, the site has an eerie legacy. In 1934, a photographer fell to his death in Mummy House. In 1985, a ranger was crushed by a boulder. Pueblo elders warn, spirits guard these places. And geologists agree. Sandstone weakens when disturbed. So what truly happened? Was it climate collapse, a sacred farewell? Their descendants, the Hopi and Pueblo peoples, offer a final truth. We didn't vanish. We completed our journey. From the cloud-wreathed peaks of the Andes to the sun-baked canyons of Colorado, the stories of these lost cities resonate with a timeless power. Machu Picchu, Petra, Angkor Wat, and Cliff Palace. Each is a monument to human ambition, creativity, and resilience. They are silent witnesses to the rise and fall of empires, to the ebb and flow of history. They were worlds unto themselves, centers of power, faith, and culture that were swallowed by time and circumstance, only to be reborn through discovery, returning to our collective memory as whispers from a forgotten age. Their rediscovery reminds us of the fragility of even the greatest civilizations. It reveals how swiftly nature can reclaim what we build and how easily history can be forgotten. Yet they also stand as powerful symbols of endurance. The stones remain, holding the echoes of the people who shaped them, preserving their stories for those who are patient enough to listen. They challenge our perceptions of the past, proving that history is not a closed book, but a vast, unexplored landscape with mysteries still buried, waiting for the curious and the determined to uncover them. These incredible places pose more questions than they answer. What drove these ancient peoples to build on such a monumental scale? What were their deepest beliefs, their greatest fears, their most profound joys? And what ultimately led them to walk away, leaving these magnificent creations to the silence? In seeking to understand their world, we inevitably learn more about our own relationship with nature, our own societal structures, and our own place in the long unfolding story of humanity. The search for lost cities is, in the end, a search for ourselves. So which one left you speechless? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, stay curious, stay awesome.